Let me ask you a question. If someone asked you what form of government the United States has, what would you say? I'm guessing most of us, myself included, would probably say a democracy. But what if I told you that's not quite right? Actually, the nation's founders would have given a very different answer. Let's dig into why. So picture this. It's September 1787. The Constitutional Convention has just wrapped up. Benjamin Franklin is walking out of Independence Hall and he's asked, "Well, doctor, what have we got, a republic or a monarchy?" His answer wasn't a democracy. It was this famous and, kind of ominous line, "A republic, madam, if you can keep it." And that right there is the core question, isn't it? We hear the word democracy thrown around all the time by politicians, on the news, everywhere. So why on earth did Franklin say republic? And what is the difference anyway? Well, it turns out to the founders, that difference was absolutely everything. Okay, so this distinction is really the first key to unlocking how the American system was designed to work. It was a very deliberate choice, and Franklin's answer shines a spotlight on it. A choice that stands in pretty stark contrast to how we usually talk about our government today. You see, while we tend to use these words almost interchangeably now, the founders absolutely did not. Guys like James Madison were actually deeply suspicious of pure democracy. They'd done their homework, they studied history, and they saw a fundamental danger lurking inside it, a danger they were determined to avoid at all costs. And that danger? Well, it has a name: the tyranny of the majority. This single idea was the central problem that the entire constitutional framework was engineered to solve. So, what exactly did they mean by that? In a pure democracy, the rule is pretty simple. Majority rules. Whatever more than half the people want becomes law. And on the surface, that sounds totally fair. It's the will of the people, right? But the founders saw a massive, critical flaw in that logic. This analogy, often credited to Franklin, just perfectly captures their fear. It's so vivid. In this situation, the lamb's liberty and, well, its life is literally on the ballot. The majority gets exactly what it wants, but the minority gets eaten. Now, this wasn't some brand new idea they came up with. The founders were pulling from political thinkers way back to Aristotle, who warned that democracy has a dark side. It can easily degenerate into its bad form, which is basically mob rule. A system where intense emotions, not solid principles, could lead a majority to just steamroll the rights of everyone else. James Madison even had a specific name for these dangerous groups. He called them factions. Now, faction could be any group, really, but the one he was most worried about was a majority faction, a big group united by some passion to deny the rights of others. Their whole goal was to design a system that could stop this from happening. So, if pure democracy was the problem, what was the solution? Well, the answer wasn't just a tweak here or there. It was a radical rethinking of what a government could be. Their answer was the republic. At its heart, the Republican solution was all about one thing: restraint. The founders didn't want to get rid of the will of the people, but they wanted to filter it, to channel it. The goal was to build a government with limited powers, a system with built-in brakes and guardrails. And this here is the design, in a nutshell. A constitutional republic has two essential parts. First, we the people rule through representatives we elect. We don't decide every issue directly. And second, this is the real game changer, the entire government is bound by a constitution that puts hard limits on its power and protects our fundamental rights from ever being put up for a vote. This chart just lays it out so clearly. In a pure democracy, power is all about the will of the majority, and there are no real limits on it. But in a constitutional republic, power flows from the people through law. And that law, the Constitution, acts as a hard stop, protecting our inalienable rights from being voted away, no matter how popular that might be. Okay, so that's the big idea, but how did the founders actually put this theory into practice? Well, they created a super detailed governing blueprint for this new kind of government. And that blueprint, of course, is the United States Constitution. It isn't just a mission statement or a collection of ideals. It's a structural machine, carefully designed to make the principles of a constitutional republic a reality. And inside that machine, there are these key mechanisms. The most famous ones are the separation of powers into 3 branches of government, a system of checks and balances so each branch can push back on the others, and of course, the Bill of Rights. By splitting power between the legislative, executive, and judicial branches, the Constitution makes sure that no single person or group can get enough authority to become a tyrant. It's a system designed for friction, on purpose, not for speed. The whole point is to slow things down and prevent a passionate majority from making rash decisions. And then you've got the Bill of Rights. Now, here's what's so fascinating. You could argue it's the most anti-democratic part of the entire Constitution. It flat out says there are certain things, like your freedom of speech or religion, that the majority simply does not get to vote on. They can't take those rights away, period, no matter how many people want to. But the founders' big ideas didn't stop there. James Madison had one more truly radical theory that just completely flipped the conventional wisdom of his time right on its head. See, at the time, all the big-name political philosophers like Montesquieu argued that for a republic to work, it had to be small and homogeneous. The thinking was that in a small state, everyone would basically share the same interests, which would make it easier to govern for the common good. But Madison argued the exact opposite. He said, no, go big, extend the sphere. In a large, diverse republic, you'll have so many different groups and interests that it becomes way harder for any single one to form a permanent, oppressive majority. In his view, diversity wasn't a weakness, it was a structural strength. It was a safeguard for liberty. And all of this brings us full circle, right back to where we started, with Ben Franklin and his challenge. Now we can really see what he meant. That wasn't just a simple description, it was a warning, a challenge. The founders had built this incredibly complex system to protect liberty from the dangers of mob rule, but they knew it was fragile. They knew its survival depended on future generations, us, to understand it, to respect it, and to actively maintain it. And ultimately, Franklin's challenge is now our challenge. Knowing that the United States was designed as a constitutional republic, specifically to protect liberty from the pitfalls of a pure democracy, what does that mean for us today? What does it actually take to preserve a system that relies on things like restraint and respect for minority rights and the rule of law? That's the real question he left for all of us to answer. How do we keep it?